After over 40 hours in Assassin's Creed Mirage, I've 100% in the game. I got every achievement, weapon, and solved every secret. Now I'm here to tell you if it's worth it. Mirage promises to bring back the series to its roots, focusing on stealth and starring my personal favorite character from Valhalla, Basim, as we learn about his past. So a lot is riding on this to deliver, as Valhalla received mixed reception for deviating from the franchise's core elements too heavily. Before we start, special thanks to all the channel members and Twitch subs who support me directly, and well, I don't have anyone on Patreon, but if you want to support me there, there's an option. Set 2 decades before Valhalla, Mirage takes place during the early years of Basim's life, specifically during his late teens and early 20s. He starts off as a low-class thief, hoping for more and give his family a decent life. Unfortunately, after learning of something valuable inside the palace in his local area, Basim ends up with blood on his hands, his family dead from his actions, and now he's on the run. Recruited into the Hidden Ones, Basim trains to become an assassin and rid his home of the control of the Templars, who are called the Order before they are established as the Templars. The assassins are originally called the Hidden Ones. Just want to establish that for context purposes, while also learning about who he is. If you're a veteran of the Assassin's Creed franchise, the story won't really excite you or offer the same levels of sophistication of past games. It definitely follows the early original set of games that the Templars are just bad people and the Assassins are the good, which is a shame. After Assassin's Creed 3, the writers did an exceptional job of highlighting how the Templars weren't evil, just different people with contrasting ideals. Highlighting in Assassin's Creed 3 with Haytham Kenway, Black Flag with Edward playing both sides in the early game, Rogue with Shay joining the Templars, and Unity showcasing the Assassin's own form of corruption. So to go back to the Templars just being evil people who just want to control everything was definitely a step back in my opinion. As for Basim, this isn't the charismatic or complicated character that Ivor meets in England. He's naive but willing to learn and carries himself well. I love Basim in Valhalla, and here he just is a wonderful character, even though he kind of carries himself with that sense of naivete. He's loyal to the people who saved him, and they gave him purpose, but it does feel rushed at times how he becomes the character that we see in Valhalla. This is a short adventure, around 10 hours, so they gloss over a lot to get Basim's story moving forward to the person we will eventually see in Valhalla. As for the cutscenes, they're a mixed bag. Some are wonderful, choreographed, and acted, and other times they use the same techniques found in Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, with people standing in the power pose and acting procedurally generated. I get it, this is a large title, but going back to games like Assassin's Creed Revelations and Assassin's Creed 3, you can see how much heart went into these scenes a while back. Even Assassin's Creed 2's original scenes blow most modern titles out of the water in comparison. The voice work is fantastic though. Basim's voice actor nails the young Hidden One, and the new master, Roshan, is an exceptional mentor. She's dedicated to her students and the Hidden Ones, commanding respect from everyone, and shows incredible skill highlighting years of dedication. The time with her is short, but provides enough information to show why she's loyal to the Hidden Ones, and that her ideology is set into motion. The story won't win over new, returning, or dedicated fans. It serves more of a supplement for seeing where Basim came from. It isn't necessary, and new fans will likely be confused with the main elements of the story here if you haven't played Valhalla or most of the Assassin's Creed franchise. The ending in particular is very confusing, and I still see a lot of debate among fan bases about what it exactly means. I have my own theories, and I'll likely have a video out as soon as I can about that. For fans of Valhalla or Basim, you'll likely get more out of Mirage's narrative than others, but for most players, they'll be very confused about what exactly transpired or not care at all. Mirage has been cited by Ubisoft as a return to the roots of Assassin's Creed, with the core theme being simplified. Instead of the insane mysticism abilities and high-octane attacks found in Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, which there's still some here and I'll get more into that later, the game relies more on stealth. The best way I can convey it is a mix of Assassin's Creed 1 and some elements from Assassin's Creed 2, with the modern visual presentation seen in Valhalla. Direct combat is definitely frowned on, and instead players are encouraged to use stealth and avoid fights. The hidden blade is still here for stealth kills, and the eagle vision provides a pulse of all significant objects and NPCs, hostile or safe, in the area. In eagle vision, you can only walk, no running, and you have your eagle companion for aerial recon as long as there's no marksman in the area to scare your eagle away. You do get access to 6 different tools. 2 are given from the game's story progression, and the rest are granted by invested into the skill tree. The tools include a torch for lighting up dark areas, throwing knives, blow dart, noisemaker, trap, and smoke bomb. Each can be upgraded 3 levels, granting a new sub option for the tool like increased range or the amount you can carry. Since you can only replenish tools from toolboxes in the world and from item vendors, you need to be careful of how you use these. They're extremely powerful, such as the knives replacing a bow, allowing you for one-hit kills if you're in range and deal a headshot. The blow dart puts people to sleep for easy kills, or can be altered to make enemies insane and attack others. Noisemakers lure enemies to where it was thrown, traps knock enemies out, and smoke bombs cakes the area in dust for easy kills or escapes. All of them offer some sort of advantage, and using them prudently ensures your own success. The skills have been dramatically simplified from Valhalla's days. You now have 3 sets to choose from that offer basic advantages. This includes increasing your eagle's marking range, able to detect enemies while crouched, and retrieving knives from enemies who have been killed by one. It's definitely an easier system to follow that builds on Basim's existing skills instead of adding options that most players won't even use. This doesn't mean that the insanity of Assassin's Creed is completely gone. Basim has access to a skill called Assassin's Focus. It's basically a kill everything with ease option. By stealth killing enemies, Basim can access this focus ability that allows him to teleport to targeted enemies based on how much focus meter you have. It definitely serves as a decent reward for those who invest into stealth options as opposed to attempted melee combat. Speaking of melee combat, it's also been simplified compared to recent Assassin's Creed games. You don't have wild and insane options such as in Assassin's Creed Unity or Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Instead, you have very basic options when it comes to weaponry and tactics. You have light and heavy melee strikes for defense. You have parrying or dodging options. Both bosses and regular enemies follow the pattern, with the exception being animals, which are 2 hostile types. There are snakes and cheetahs, and that's it. The guards have 5 types: sword users, marksmen, spear users, and finally 2 heavy options, which includes one that blows fire and another that can only be damaged from behind. The enemy variety is definitely lacking, but they're formidable, as Basim can easily be overwhelmed by guards if he's not careful. They'll call for help, surround him, and chase him. This doesn't mean that they're smart. The same tactics used in Ezio's days will still work, such as whistling to lure them to a patch of grass, but the inconsistent cone of vision can make you second guess yourself at times. Sometimes they'll watch their allies, but the timing is off, so you can just wait for the guard's friends to turn away and just kill them. It definitely feels lackluster in the stealth department, especially when compared to Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain, but I feel like Ubisoft should take notes from that game and implement them here with future Assassin's Creed games. Granted, it would be harder, but at the same time, that kind of redefines stealth, and seeing that Ubisoft did find its foundation within the stealth franchise with Assassin's Creed and Splinter Cell, I feel like this is something that they can refine and make it so much better. If you do find yourself in a fight through scripting or your own actions, Basim has a variety of weapons that he can choose from. You have an option for 1 sword and 1 dagger and 1 outfit for stat enhancements. Combat usually just involves you waiting to parry and counterattack, or to dodge and then strike. To prevent players from spamming attacks, there is a stamina meter, which is... I don't even know why this is in the game, because all it does is slow down the gameplay, especially when you're riding your mount. Like, why does my horse or camel have a stamina bar? Their entire reason for existing in this game is to run, and there's no mounted combat, so I'm not really sure why this stamina meter is even here. My only argument for this is that the game was already too easy, so they had to implement some sort of artificial difficulty option with the stamina meter. Even in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I don't understand why everything needs a stamina meter. Look, I understand for Souls-like games it makes sense, but Assassin's Creed is not a Souls-like. It doesn't need a stamina meter. Just implement enemies that have a different array of attacks to add to the difficulty. Don't add something artificial to increase the difficulty because I have to wait around until my stamina meter recharges. I went on a bit of a tangent there, but it's something that I'm venomously against when you add artificial difficulty options just to make the game harder instead of putting the effort to make the enemies actually challenging. Each item can be upgraded twice with added set benefits, but only after locating a unique plan found in the game's world or by completing an optional mission. Basim's equipment options have been simplified. Again, that's why I said the theme of this game is simple. Instead of an array of items you can choose from, an outfit that provides a unique bonus is all that you have access to in terms of armor. And there's also a sword and a dagger and 2 cosmetic options that include a costume that overrides your outfit with a cosmetic option and a talisman for you to wear on Basim's back. Every weapon and outfit has its own pros and cons, but everything is a viable option, similar to how Valhalla made every weapon that you find a viable option based on personal preference rather than just choosing whatever is the most powerful item that you can choose from. Other cosmetics include varying horses, so I always just chose to ride the camel because it was the unique option, and you also have cosmetic options for your eagles, all of which change in which the cutscenes play out. So if you want to play as Enzio with his costume on Basim, you can, and all the cutscenes will show him with Enzio's costume on. Now, you cannot just brute force upgrades, which is a good idea to keep players from hoarding crafting material and getting overpowered right from the start once you get into the open world. Crafting has been simplified as well, with 3 sets of materials that you can obtain from missions, crates, or purchase from vendors, but they also have a limited number in which they can sell. There's no raw material in the overworld, which means I don't have to relive my trauma of roaming around Odyssey gathering hundreds of pieces of wood and metal. If you want to run, simply break line of sight and find a hidden area to keep low like a bench inside some bushes or just out of reach of the enemies, with the eyes showing how long till they give up. However, this doesn't mean that the guards will forget. Returning to the same area with the same set of enemies, they'll remember you and they will attack regardless of your notoriety, which I think is a fantastic detail. The notoriety system is taken straight from Assassin's Creed 2, and you gain 3 levels before they send an elite warrior after you. You can either rip posters down to lower your rank by 1 tier per poster, bribe an official, or kill the warrior, which will reset your notoriety immediately. Speaking of officials, there are several NPCs you can interact with. Returning is the ability to ask people from different guilds to help you, like Enzio's games. However, here they only take tokens. These are specialized currencies, which there are 3 of. Each is unique to the guild associated with them, such as Merchant, Scholar, and Power. And some NPCs will only accept these tokens either for discounts, bribes, or unique options during missions. Money is also available, but it serves more of a secondary currency for refilling your tools or buying certain materials. A large portion of your income comes from pickpocketing. Despite being defenders of freedom and fighting for the individual, you steal a lot of money from innocent people. It's the best way to obtain money and tokens since the items you get are random, at least from my perspective. I did notice some differences between gold and silver pouches, but regardless, you are given money, trinkets that are meant to be sold, or tokens. To pickpocket someone, you have to play this timing minigame when you are about to engage with it, but someone at Ubisoft noticed this would get insanely tedious and offers an auto option, which I picked after the 10th time of doing this. Don't judge me, you would do the same in my situation. Alright, now let's talk about missions. The missions you play out like the investigations from Odyssey, but in a linear fashion. Basim is given 4 major targets to hunt down along with 1 final target, and you can choose whatever order you want to go with this, with each target linked to a different hidden one's hideout. You'll investigate the target through a series of missions that combine assassinations, tailing, and locating intel leading up to the final mission. The final mission takes the same formula established by Assassin's Creed Unity. Basim has several options to take out the target, and it's up to you to find them. The game does highlight them, but you'll have to decide the best course of action. For example, during this hunt, you can choose to find a hidden basement and steal a set of keys from one of the workers after learning about it from a bribed worker. Or you can find a secret passphrase and get inside that way while avoiding guards. While confronting your target, you're given the option for direct combat or choose the stealth option, which also has an entirely optional cutscene available for those who seek it out. Unfortunately, the targets are just generic bad guys who just want to use their power and influence for their own advantage. As I stated before, this is a step back considering that the Templars and Assassins have become more fleshed out over the course of the Assassin's Creed franchise. The optional missions include individual contracts provided through each hideout and the Tales of Baghdad, which are overworld missions. These are single-servant missions that provide additional bonuses if you complete the optional tasks associated with the mission along with core items. They're largely unremarkable, but they're fun distractions. A large amount of optional content comes in the way of collectibles that include riddles called enigmas that hide special cosmetics, 3 sets of optional quest key items, historical facts, and gear chest. You can find these locations by either exploring the world or by getting maps from the Scholar vendor in exchange for tokens. But the developers did artificially make gathering these items harder. The map only highlights locations if you zoom into the map instead of being zoomed out. This may seem like a small issue, but when you're missing one item and have to zoom in to locate it within the entire map, granted the map is separated into sections, it can still get annoying instead of why can't I just zoom out of the map and them highlighting the icon that I need. The map is definitely smaller than previous Assassin's Creed games, but to its own benefit. Despite the lack of viewpoints for fast traveling, the condensed nature means you won't be walking for long periods to get to your destination. If you've been playing these games for a long time like I have, this is a huge lifesaver. The map itself is diverse with a nice collection of NPCs wandering around doing their own thing, a collection of small towns, farming settlements, and the city itself is teeming with people. It doesn't compare to Valhalla's England or even France from Unity, but you can tell the developers really put their heart into designing this world, with particles dancing in the wind, animals rushing around, insects, rats, and many tiny details. I know Ubisoft has a reputation for bland open world missions, but man, do they really know how to make their worlds feel alive from a presentation standpoint. They really just need to add some more diverse missions and go that extra mile. Take references from the Yakuza franchise or Elden Ring of how to maintain and craft missions that are meaningful instead of just samey missions. Because I would say that's the biggest hurdle for Ubisoft games. All the missions just seem disjointed and the same. But if they can actually create meaningful, well-crafted missions, like I think a lot of people would side on me on this, that they would prefer one meaningful quest line as opposed to 20 generic follow the waypoint and complete this individual samey task over and over. I know I would. Like, just create one giant quest line that's very just single-minded in its execution instead of just plopping down individual missions that just feel all the same. Now, I need to address the technical issues within this game. It is an open world game, so expect issues, but during my playtime, I was enduring a lot of crashes. They were infrequent, but happened enough to be an issue. The frame rate would also dip during open combat when there were too many NPCs on screen, especially when I was being chased by guards, which is confusing because I don't remember this happening in Valhalla, Odyssey, or Origins. It also doesn't help seeing that those worlds were much larger than anything in Mirage, that this shouldn't be happening. There were a lot of things happening in those games, not only NPCs walking around, but animals, different resources sprouting up, just so much stuff happening on screen. So I'm not really sure why Mirage is so technically just not stable. Not to the point that it's unplayable, but to the point that it becomes noticeable and you're wondering, isn't Ubisoft supposed to be proficient in making these open world games? So it's a little confusing. Assassin's Creed Mirage is more or less a game for fans of the franchise who really like Basim from Valhalla. Newcomers will get lost in the game's narrative, and the gameplay systems are limited compared to other Assassin's Creed games in terms of weapons, technique, and options, especially considering those games are now at heavy discounts. I once saw Valhalla for $10, and that offers so much more game than this does. This is not to say that Mirage is a bad game, but it's definitely a hard sell for those unfamiliar with the franchise or who didn't enjoy Valhalla. As someone who is a fan of both Assassin's Creed and Valhalla, by the end, I just didn't feel like it moved the franchise forward. I learned more about Basim, but nothing that would make me more invested into the character as opposed to Valhalla, and the biggest issue being that it doesn't move the franchise forward. It doesn't answer any questions and doesn't do anything really that profound. It just reminds me a lot of with Assassin's Creed Rogue, of how that game ended. Then it told you to play Assassin's Creed Unity and how lukewarm that ending was about the cliffhanger provided to you by Rogue. It's just so anticlimactic, and I felt like they could have done so much more with the game's ending to make it feel more cathartic or more profound, even giving us a tease of what happened at the end of Valhalla and what Basim could mean to the evolution of the Assassin Order, or if he's planning to betray them or something, just something to give us to cling on for the next Assassin's Creed game. And unfortunately, this game does not do that. In terms of gameplay, I had to really drag my feet to 100% the game, especially for the blend in the crowd achievement. God, that was such an annoyance. Either way, it's not a bad game, but this is definitely something for Assassin's Creed fan. I just can't make a plausible argument to sell this game to someone who's new to the franchise, someone who has become disinterested in the franchise and wanted to hop back in. If someone wanted to hop back into the franchise, I would argue that they should play Origins or Valhalla. Odyssey, that's a little bit more difficult, but definitely I would say probably want to play Valhalla instead. You'll definitely have a lot more fun with that, and it's a lot more game for the price point. But in terms of this, I would say wait for a discount, maybe $20. If this was sold as an expansion to Valhalla that you can buy separately, I feel like that would have been a much more adequate sale. But for $50, you're really asking a lot for someone who's either moved on from the franchise or someone who's already burned out from Valhalla.